Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Brothers channel. And today I'm going to be doing a versus video between the Nike Zoom Freak 2 and the Nike Kyrie 7. So the Zoom Freak 2 is going for 120 bucks and the Kyrie 7 is going for 130 bucks. So pretty much the same exact price. If you guys do want to cop either of these shoes, I'll leave a link in the description box. And it's, I guess, Giannis Antetokounmpo versus Kyrie Irving. Very, very different players, but the shoes play pretty damn similarly, right? But anyway, let's get it started right off with the Tracciones, and I'm gonna have to give it to the Zoom Freak 2. Keep in mind, I only played outdoors in both of these shoes, so I don't have any intel or information on the indoor court, so I'm sorry about that. I've tried it on my wood floors, and I would say the Zoom Freak 2 actually has a better bite. Like, the Zoom Freak 2 has a really nice bite actually. The Kyrie 7 has a good bite as well, but of course it's only on my wood floors. Take that with a grain of salt. But as far as outdoor use goes, durability wise, the Zoom Freak 2 is a million times better. And that's very surprising. Seeing like all these small little nub things on the Zoom Freak 2 traction. When I first got it, I was like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like something very durable, but I mean, you do have this like pivot circle and the rubber is super thick where the ball of your foot is, which is a very high wear area. And I do have a little bit of tearing off, but it's definitely not as bad as the Kyrie 7. Actually, this is a new pair, you know, this is a new Kyrie 7. My old pair, the rubber is bare bones, like it's all worn out. And I've had the Zoom Freak 2 for longer. So since it was worn out and I couldn't really use it anymore, I just cut it in half and I did the chop. So there's that. But anyways, yeah, the Kyrie 7 durability is way worse and a good amount more inconsistent on the outdoor court. So yeah, I pretty much never had an issue with the Zoom Freak 2, like super solid, very consistent. The Kyrie 7, it just didn't seem as good. Of course, that can be a little bit different on the indoor court. One thing I like about the Kyrie 7 a little bit more though is the outsole curvature, of course. The outsole curvature allows you to kind of like go on your toes a little bit more. Like when you're doing crossovers, your foot does this movement a lot. So the extra rubber that you get, like the extra grip that you get from doing that, and also like that shake just feels great. The Zoom Freak 2 does that a little bit, but not as much. So that feels a little bit better than the Kyrie 7s. As far as the heel to toe transition goes, they're both pretty damn smooth. You know, here in the heel, you have a nice curved shape in both of the shoes. So really can't complain there. And then here in the forefoot, you have a nice curved shape as well. Look at that. Look at how much the shoe comes up. So that feels great. And then the Kyrie 7 doesn't really flex as much here in the forefoot though. The Zoom Freak 2 flexes a little bit more, I would say. It's still kind of stiff though, surprisingly. So heel to toe transition, I would tie it up pretty much. Alright, moving on to the cushion, I'm gonna have to give this to the Kyrie 7. So it's a very similar cushioning setup in both of the shoes, right? So you have a Phylon midsole, which isn't like super nice. And then you have a forefoot zoom unit. So the forefoot zoom unit here in the Zoom Freak 2 is a smaller unit. It's probably the same size as like the PG3. Pretty much like a half circle, I would say. The Kyrie 7 is a very large volume zoom unit. It's the zoom turbo unit here in the forefoot, which pretty much takes up the entire forefoot. You can feel it in your toes, you can feel it where the ball of your foot is, like pretty much all right here, right? So that feels awesome. And also it's easier to feel in the Kyrie 7. The Zoom Freak 2, you can still feel it, but of course not as much because it's a smaller zoom unit, you know? And also another thing is the Kyrie 7 feels a little bit softer here in the heel. The Zoom Freak 2, I don't know what it is. Like if you look at the forefoot compresses a good amount, right? If you look at it, but then the heel in the Zoom Freak 2 is like pretty stiff, you know? So I don't know why that's like that, but you know, it is. The Kyrie 7, like I said, it's a little bit softer, just a tiny bit. So because of that, I would say the Kyrie 7 is overall a little bit better. Of course, if you don't like to feel a zoom unit in the forefoot, then the Zoom Freak 2 will probably be better for you. Court feel, I'd say it's pretty much the same. Impact protection, the Kyrie 7 is a tiny bit better. In balance, of course, the Kyrie 7 is a little bit bouncier here in the forefoot. All right, moving on to the materials. So the materials here in the Zoom Freak 2 are super nice. You know, I actually really like it. It's a textile material. It doesn't feel stiff or flimsy or glued down at all. And it's thin, so it feels great here in the forefoot. The Kyrie 7 is super minimal as well, but it just feels a little bit flimsier, a little bit more glued down, and not as like nice as the Zoom Freak 2. So overall material, I would say the Zoom Freak 2 feels better. And as far as the thickness goes, I would say the Kyrie 7 is a little bit thinner, but the Zoom Freak 2 is still super thin and minimal. It just has it feels a little bit more like cozy, you know, it feels like there's a little bit of padding there. And then moving on to the tongue here in the Zoom Freak 2 is super nice. I absolutely love how much padding that they put in here. It's great. The Kyrie 7, I would say, has a good amount of padding as well. The Zoom Freak 2, I would say, is the larger tongue, right? Yeah, the Zoom Freak 2 has a larger tongue. It just feels nicer on top of your foot. And then here in the ankle area, you have a good amount of padding as well. I would say around the same. I would say I like the Zoom Freak 2 materials and padding a little bit better than the Kyrie 7. And of course, as far as like the like kind of little minor details go, the Zoom Freak 2 has like this swoosh with the synthetic material, which feels like crap. Also here on the medial side with the synthetic material, it's not that nice. Same thing with the Kyrie 7, you know, you got these like plastic fingers in the forefoot, which help for lockdown. And then here in the heel, you got some like synthetic materials as well. So I mean, they're kind of like, they're not budget shoes, but like they're on the cheaper side of things for Nike. So they're using cheaper materials. So of course, if you're looking for like super high quality materials on your shoe, this is not the way to go. But if you want something that's very, very minimal, very thin, and also kind of cozy because of the thicker tongue and padding here in the ankle area, then both of these are great options. Just for me personally, I like the Zoom Freak 2 materials a little bit better. All right, moving on to the fit. I went true to size for both of these shoes, and they both fit me really, really well. So lengthwise, true to size was perfect for me. Widthwise, I would say they're both slightly narrow, or pretty damn narrow actually. And then here in the toe box, they're very, very snug. I mean, it's to the point where I can't really even like curl my toes, you know? That's how snug it is. So if you don't like to have a snug fit, or you have a wide foot, or you have a thick ass foot or something like that, I would suggest going up half a size, or maybe even a full size, because that's how snug these shoes are. But yeah, it's pretty interesting how similarly these shoes fit. Putting these shoes on is also pretty damn easy. The Zoom Freak 2 opens up a good amount with this oversized tongue. You have a little bit of a heel tab as well, so you just slide your foot in, tighten up the laces, and you're good to go. Same thing with the Kyrie 7, but it is like a mid-cut, so it's a little bit harder to put on the shoe, but it's not that hard. All right, moving on to the support and lockdown. I mean, for Kyrie, he needs a lot of support. Same thing with Giannis, so you better have support in their shoes, right? And they do. So lateral containment, it's awesome in both of the shoes. Here in the Zoom Freak 2, you have these like plastic pieces here in the forefoot and kind of like in the midfoot, I would say. The foam comes up a lot here in the heel. So as you guys can see, this is pretty much acting like a lateral cage. And if you saw in the dismantling of the Kyrie 7, you have the foam coming up a good amount here in the heel and in the midfoot. And then here in the forefoot, you have this plastic clip, which just cages you like crazy. So your foot's not going anywhere on lateral movements in any of the shoes. For lateral stability, they're both good. I wonder which one is wider. I'd say the Zoom Freak 2 is wider just by a little bit. You know, you have this pretty crazy outrigger, but the Kyrie 7 is also pretty wide. If you look at it, I mean, it doesn't have an outrigger really. Like the rubber doesn't protrude out a lot. But you know, this part actually is like on the side of your foot. You know what I'm saying? So this is also a pretty wide shoe with a low base. So lateral stability is good as well. If you're looking for ankle support, obviously go with the Kyrie 7. I mean, the Kyrie 7 isn't the best, but if you do tighten the laces here on the last two eyelets pretty tightly, you do have a little bit of ankle support. And obviously it's way better than the Zoom Freak 2, which is a low. So if you want ankle support, go with the Kyrie 7. If you don't really need it, Zoom Freak 2. But everything else for support and lockdown, I give it a tie. And also like heel lockdown is really good as well. If you look at both of the shoes, they have the padding where the padding is like on top of the ankle area, which is normal, and that's pretty much what you're supposed to do, and that locks your heel down very, very well. All right, moving on to the weight. I don't know. I feel like the Zoom Freak 2 might be a little bit lighter. We'll see though. Yeah, so 11.5 ounces. That's super duper light. And then the Kyries, I believe, were like, yeah, so 12.13 ounces. So the Kyries are a little bit heavier, probably because of the extra rubber. And of course, this is a mid. So yeah, the Zoom Freak 2 definitely feels like less on your foot. You know, like I said in the Kyrie 7 review, it feels a little like like bottom heavy in the forefoot because of all of this. You know, the Zoom turbo unit and the extra rubber coming up. The Zoom Freak 2 is a little bit more balanced in how it feels, but like the materials like on top of your foot, they're both very, very minimal. It just feels a little bit more bulky, kind of bulky in the Kyrie 7. I'm just nitpicking at this point, obviously because this is a detailed comparison. By the way, I mean, like if you want a minimal, like lightweight shoe, they're both a very, very good option, but I'm just saying the Zoom Freak 2 is a little bit more lightweight, a little bit more minimal. So there's that. Moving on to the ventilation. Ventilation is good in both of the shoes. Not a whole lot of airflow though, sadly, because I believe it's like pretty glued down. So if you blow through it, there's not a whole lot of airflow. The same thing with the Zoom Freak 2. But your foot's not going to be super hot in either of the shoes. So wrapping things up, personally for me, I will have to go with the Zoom Freak 2. You know, it's just an overall like better shoe for me, especially playing outdoors, right? So traction is way more durable and better. The cushion is like not that much better in the Kyrie 7. Like I said, it's just a little bit better because of the larger zoom unit in the forefoot. Materials, like I said, I like the Zoom Freak 2 a little better, and I like the low cut as well here in the Zoom Freak 2. Like the Kyrie 7, I don't mind it that much, you know, this mid cut, because it doesn't give you crazy amount of ankle movement restriction, but it's still something that's over your ankle bone, and I just like the freedom of a low. But of course, the Kyrie 7 is so nice. I just like the Zoom Freak 2 a little bit more. But if I was playing on indoor court, it might change though. Obviously, the traction is going to be way more durable on an indoor court for the Kyrie 7. Like I said, the cushion's a little bit better, materials, minimal and all that. So yeah, the Zoom Freak 2 for the win. Not saying the Kyrie 7 is worse or anything like that. It's just my personal preference. Like some things that I feel like the Kyrie 7 does a little bit better is the cushion. You got the outsole curvature. If you want a little bit more ankle support and all that, I would say go with the Kyrie 7. But everything else, the Zoom Freak 2 does just as good, if not better. But anyways, that about wraps it up for this versus video. Again, if you guys do want to cop, I'll leave links below. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.